The NHL Draft, June 24th, 25th, Buffalo, New York, just around the corner. A very important time for any team in the National Hockey League. I'm Steve Coates, and I'm joined by the general manager of the Philadelphia Flyers, Ron Hextall, to talk about trying to select the best guy for the Philadelphia Flyers at that draft. But there's so many different things, and let's just talk about the strength of this draft. We hear every year, well, it's a strong draft, it's a weak draft. And when you look at the numbers over the years, it's interesting. They've kind of spanned from 39% success to a high of 51% success of players from the draft, that percentage making and playing in the National Hockey League. How would you look at this draft as far as its strength?
We feel it's a strong draft. Certainly the first round is strong. We feel there's some depth in it. I actually asked Dennis Patterson, one of our scouts who's been around for a long time, if he's seen back-to-back drafts as strong as these two, and he said no. So we look at it as a strong draft. We like the 18th pick, feel like we're going to get a good player.
Your philosophy has always been take the best athletes available at that spot. But there's so many different variables now as far as trades available, trying to move up, other teams trying to get your draft pick, all those different things. Are you available to any change, or are you just going to say, this is what we've done, we've been successful? You've had 4 defensemen in your last 4 years. You've had a great success with it. What's your thoughts on that?
We're not going to change our philosophy. Philosophy is draft the best player. These kids are 17, 18 years old. They're young kids, and we're going to draft a player at 18 that we feel like is the best player at that spot. It's easy to sit and say, okay, where does a guy fit? But you're looking 3-4 years from now. Things change a lot, so we're going to draft the best player. If we can move up or move back and help ourselves, we'll certainly look at it. We'll look at everything as we have in the past.
It's become a science. I mean, picking a player now that's going to develop into hope what your future is for the Philadelphia Flyers Hockey Club. There is so many things involved, so many characteristics, personality, all the different things off ice as well as on ice, skill level. But is there one thing that for you, a longtime Flyer, understanding what it's like as a player and a manager, that one thing that you look for in a player to become a Flyer?
I think if I had to say one word, I'd say will. When you're watching the finals right now, like, it's a hard game. There's no time, there's no space. You got to have a lot of will. That doesn't mean physical, it means will. Driving to the net, the will to win, the willingness to block a shot, the willingness to do whatever it takes to win. It's still huge. It's a hard game right now, as I mentioned. And in one word, I'd say will.
In watching the playoffs right now, and the style of play and what's been successful for both the San Jose Sharks and the Pittsburgh Penguins to get there. In looking at your hockey club, is there one thing that you think that you really look for now to be able to make your team better and more competitive to get to the promised land?
Well, I mean, we've got work to do. We know that. We a couple of years ago, we kind of mapped out a plan, and we're continuing along the road. So we've got to continue to build our depth in all areas. You know, up front, I'd like to add a forward or two, whether it be, you know, the draft, through the system, free agency. Like, we're looking to upgrade up front in our top 9. We feel like we have a good team, we have a good foundation, we have good kids coming, but we've got work to do.
Back in the day, it was like big, big, big. Everybody had to be big and strong. Get to the corners, go to the dirty areas. The game's changed. And there's players in the National Hockey League right now, they're not that big, that are very, very talented, like Johnny Gaudreau in Calgary, Brendan Gallagher in Montreal. Players that make an impact, play the game hard, and really kind of open everybody's eyes that a small player could play in the National Hockey League. Where do you feel that this hockey club and what your thought process is in having a smaller player?
Well, first of all, the smaller players have to be special. You talk about will, elite sense, elite skills. You look at the small players, typically they have a lot of attributes that are elite. So you got to be really careful there. You don't want to bring in an average small player, but there are certain small players that can play, there's no doubt. I think still it's still a game of size, skill, will, but to find a guy that's big, fast, and skilled, there's not a whole lot around. So it's kind of trying to form that perfect mix of a team where you have some size, you obviously have skill. Some of your skills probably going to have to be a little on the smaller side because of the fact that there's not enough big skill players.
Now, everybody at this time of year is always kind of throwing darts at a dartboard, trying to figure out who everybody's going to take. They've got mock drafts. Everybody's got an opinion. So we're not going to ask you to play your hand, but I am going to, because there's certain players that have been named with the logo of the Flyers beside them, that we could ask about what your thoughts about them as players is concerned, not whether the Flyers are taking them, whether the Flyers are geared to anybody, because obviously that's a draft day decision. But the players that have come to mind, big players like Max Jones, and the son of a former Flyer, Brad Jones, your thoughts on him and seeing him play and the scouting report on him.
Yeah, Max he's a big guy. He's rough and tumble. He skates real well. He's got a nice skill set, and he brings an edge to the game.
And how about a guy like Julien Gauthier, who is a little older, which sometimes can be a good thing or a bad thing, but he is a proven goal scorer.
He is. He's real good size, speed, and he's got that knack. He's got that knack to score, but he's a hard guy to handle one-on-one because of his speed, his size, and again, when he gets in the scoring areas, he's gonna light the lamp.
And following bloodlines again, Brian Bellows' son, Kiefer Bellows, who's they say has probably the best shot in the draft coming up.
Yeah, it was a lot like his dad. He finds the soft areas, and when he gets there, he's going to put the puck in the net. That's his MO. He's an elite goal scorer, and he's going to score a lot of goals.
Is there any thought process in moving up in this draft? We're talking about guys up in that 18, 17, 16 range, but when you take a look at the other players that are above, is this a draft that you would think about that, or you just, like as you said, your spot at 18?
Yeah, we would consider moving up if the price is right, depending on who's on the board. There's a little bit with us of we're going to get the same player at 18 as we would a few picks ahead. So depending on how far up, we would look to move up again. It depends who's on the board, what the price is. So there's a lot of things that come into play there, but we'll look to move up, and who knows, depending on where the board's at, a couple picks before us, we could possibly move back as well.
Somebody actually had you moving up and taking a player like Logan Brown. What are your thoughts on Logan Brown?
Well, big guy, a lot of upside. He skates well. He really moves the puck well. Smart player. He can shoot the puck. He tends to be a pass first guy, but he's got a huge upside.
Finally, compare the trade, let's say, atmosphere heading into the draft and including the draft to the deadline trade during the middle of the year. Is there a similarity, or is it a completely different animal because of the drafts being involved?
Well, it's similar in terms of the chatter picks up. You're talking a lot, kind of trying to figure out what other teams want and whether there's a fit with what you need. And so it's a busy time in terms of, again, the chatter. Different in terms of, you're talking young players, old players, draft picks. You're talking kind of a wide variety, whereas the deadline, it's a little bit more specific with players that can help a team now or a player that can help you now. So it's different in a lot of ways, but it's similar in a lot of ways.
Since you became general manager, you've held true to everything you said you were going to do. So looking back at what you've done and where you're going forward in your mind right now, are you on schedule?
Yeah, I think we're right on schedule. I think when we made the playoffs, people were asking if we're ahead of schedule. No, I don't necessarily think we're ahead of schedule. I think we're right on. We're not out of the woods yet. We got a nice foundation. We like our team. We like our prospects, but certainly we're not anywhere near where we want to get to yet.
Hexy, thanks for taking time.
Been a pleasure.